Welcome to the Wild Pitch Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. Another episode of the Wild Pitch Podcast. We are moving right along. I thought we'd do about 3 podcasts and to shut this thing down, but we're into the 20s already, and I think we're going to get to 100. But
man, you came in with some energy.
Yeah, listen, I had a little coffee. Had some technical difficulties. We have a Division I guy with us, and we just showed him what Division II is all about. But if all you folks at home that are watching on YouTube, that is Brian Dorsey. That is our fan.
It's not a guest. He's not a guest.
Yeah.
I only show up for big time guests.
Yeah, and we have Jim Martin, the associate head coach from Stony Brook University. And he played college ball with Brian, so that's why Brian made an extra special trip to get here today. But Jim, thank you so much for coming out. I think you can add a lot. We've only had one other Division I coach so far that's active, and I think there's just so much that you guys can lend to our audience, and hopefully some good stories as well. But Brian, why don't you introduce Jim a little bit?
All right, so I played with Jim only for 1 year, his freshman year, my senior year, and we had a pretty competitive team, and we had this freshman from Boston who came down, and he's just one of those guys who could hit. He could hit anything. He rolled out of bed, sweet swinging lefty, and just hit. So as a freshman, he was an impact guy right away, and he played over juniors and seniors, and that for Blankmeyer, I mean, that's something that he will do when he feels that freshman's a better player. He's a real straight shooter, and I always liked that about Coach Blankmeyer. And I know there was 2 guys on that team as freshmen that made huge impacts, and Jimmy Martin was one, and the other one was a guy named Mike Rosema. Those 2 guys came in as freshmen, impact guys. And, I remember playing with Jim, and he was like a real knowledgeable – you'd almost say he was ahead of his time at times when he would speak hitting and he would talk. So I'm not surprised he's coaching at the Division I level. I'm not surprised he's already been a head coach somewhere else. I think I only knew him for a year, but followed obviously his career after that, and he hit. 4 years he hit, so I think hopefully we can get some stuff out of him today on the swing and his approach and some of the stuff that he likes to do with his guys.
Yeah, thanks, Doris, for the nice words. I don't know about all that, but I appreciate it. And it was quite a run we made there at the end of the season there in 2002.
Yeah, we talked about that a few weeks ago. That was fun. Yeah.
So that was quite the last month of the season, and you were a big part of that, coming as a starter and the way that you evolved. So it was a great run for us, and as a freshman, it was a great experience. So thanks again for that.
Yeah, no problem. And Jimmy can attest to this. I was a garbage reliever to start that year, and then somehow ended up pitching in some big spots down the stretch. But
yeah, we have to listen to your Bobby Brownlee story again.
No, we don't have to get into that.
No, but I think the biggest part we're missing about this story or this topic is how the impact that Dorsey had on his way out also, right? Didn't he just flip everybody off on his way out?
Those are strong words. I was frustrated at down the stretch there, and I like to think that I helped push a movement. Down the stretch, we went like 8-1 or 9-1 down the stretch to make a run at it.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know the story. If you guys talk about the Brownlee game and that Rutgers weekend, and we had to sweep them. But really the turning point in that season was Boston College. We had a team meeting in the hotel. We had a rain out on a Sunday, and we really needed to play that game. And I remember being I only lived 20 minutes from there, and going home, and Coach Blankmeyer let me go home for dinner, and then coming back, and you got to be back by 5 o'clock. And I come into the hotel, and I was in Coach Blankmeyer's meeting, and just an open forum, and a couple older guys spoke, Doris being one of them, and and I was just standing there as a freshman, and he kind of touched upon it. But after a couple guys, I said, I'm playing, I've earned it. And I remember speaking up, and from that point, it almost like everyone kind of came together as a team that last month, and we won that game at BC, and we won the Seton Hall series. And like I said, that Rutgers, so close. But I think if there was one guy from that 2002 team that really helped that movement into, 2003 wasn't a great year, but 2004, really getting, everyone thinks St. John's now, rightfully so, but those are a year and a half, some lean years for us. So, that Doris was definitely one of those guys that helped that movement and really the culture of the program and kind of what it stands for now.
He's still an activist or an outspoken guy in his new job. I mean, when he thinks something's going wrong, he always feels compelled to speak. And a lot of times we have to tell him, just relax. You're not changing anything. But,
that's him.
Yeah, he can't help himself. He cannot help himself. So,
Jim, I got a story for you after this off-camera, Jimmy Gels, about what happened to me yesterday. We'll get into it.
All right, I'm sure you do. But so Jim, you work with the legendary Matt Sink. Man, I know Brian and I both were recruited by him as players, and he used to write us these long handwritten notes. And he was just such a hard worker back in the day. Even when, he brought that, as you know, I don't have to tell you, from Division III to to the College World Series. How is it working with him nowadays? I mean, he's been good with me and Chris too. Just any advice we need moving forward. So we really respect him.
Yeah, he's the best to work for. I've been at a few other schools, but the way that he lets you be your own coach, your own person, his loyalty, his work ethic, how much he cares about the players, really his passion for Stony Brook. This is his 30th year, and the passion that he has, but how good he is to not only me and our players and the people inside the building and athletics and really the university, but in my family too. He's as good as there is. I can't say enough good things about him. This being my third year, he's just been a stand-up, loyal. And you talk about work ethic. If there's somewhere that he needs to go or something to do, if we have something going on, and whether it be work related or person related, what do I got to do? What do you need me to do? Where do you need me to go? How can we become better? Right now during this whole pandemic, what are we going to do? We got to get these, recruits some material, video. How can we get to, tell our story? So he's awesome. He's, like I said, there's a reason for the amount of wins and success. And, everyone talks about Omaha, and, he's the best. He's great.
Well, while you're on the Omaha topic, that's something I wanted to talk about. So you come in, and obviously a few years after they went on that run, what do you notice about the program, and what do they talk about, the guys that were there, obviously Coach Sank and anybody else who's in the program, what do they talk about from that run and how it's impacted?
Yeah, rightfully so. It's talked about often. It's kind of funny, the success that they've had in the championships, and each class, if you went in there from 2004 until now, if you went in there, you've won a championship. So each class has won a championship. But it was kind of a couple of years of 500, and in 2016 and 2017, and they were 500, and they were just okay. And all I kept hearing from Coach Sank is, we were average. You're as close to the top as you are to the bottom. And he kept saying, and I'm saying to myself, I can't hear this anymore. And he used to talk about Omaha and my Omaha team, and then we talked one day. I said, Coach, a couple things. One, we're not going to be average anymore, so we don't need to hear that. And then two, these guys are here. Big reason is because of Omaha, but at the same time, they don't want to hear it as much as maybe what we need to relay it to them. Again, I'm paraphrasing, but to his point or his credit, he still brought it up and it's still talked about, and rightfully so it should be. But yeah, it's definitely felt throughout the baseball program and at the athletic department itself. And to do what they did in 2012 really is unprecedented. It hasn't been done before. It hasn't been done, after, with the teams. BC went to Super Regional, St. John's, UConn, but to go to Omaha, it should be celebrated. It should be brought up, but at times, a lot of reasons why guys are there is because of Omaha. But then sometimes because if they are struggling a little bit, they want to focus on what we need to do. And Coach is great, and he refocuses and gets back to the team that we have. But I mean, he's, it's like I said, it's you can feel it. It's brought up often, and rightfully so.
Yeah, I mean that to get there from the Northeast to do what they did is just. You could argue it may never happen again, right? For anybody in the Northeast,
right?
So yeah, it's
they
always
won something crazy, and he's right. The resiliency that team had, I think they won something like 5 straight elimination games. It was something like they beat Missouri State. They beat it might have been Miami, Missouri State, and then UCF. And then the LSU, I think they won 5 straight elimination games to get to Omaha, which is just unbelievable, especially to do in that environment and on the road.
Right. One thing I wanted to touch on, because I see it now with some of my friends in the industry. So you're at Rhode Island beforehand, right? Before Stony Brook. Yeah. So to get the job you have now, associate head coach, how many people applied for that job? What was the number?
Yeah, sounds like there was quite a bit. Especially just like Doris said, just about the, Omaha and the profile of the baseball program. From what I understand, there were a couple other guys that met with Coach Stank, and I had a couple good advocates for me. One of which Brian knows is Coach Hampton. He knows Coach Stank well, and he actually knew Joe Panucci well because they're actually both from Colorado. So he's the one that kind of recommended Joe. And then, when this all kind of happened with Joe leaving, he spoke to Coach Stank, and that's kind of how the ball got rolling, along with a couple other people. And then I met with Coach. But yeah, it was quite a process just with the whole state and doing what they needed to do. But
I could be wrong, but I would think that you having that head coaching experience probably helps a lot.
Yeah. It's me and Coach Stank have talked about this just in general, just how kind of each step in my profession, going from a Division II assistant to Division II head coach to Division I first assistant and to Stony Brook. It's kind of each job led to another, little higher, a little better. But it was each position. If I wasn't a head coach at Merrimack, I probably don't get a job at URI. I wouldn't have gone from Southern Connecticut to the first assistant at URI, and then I wouldn't have been at Stony Brook if I was at Merrimack.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's important for people. I think any player, and we have a lot of players that listen to this, that they assume I'm just going to go coach, and I think it's important for them to understand the process. And I am amazed at assistant coaches, head coaches, how amazing people they are, and that's what it takes. But to break through maybe a couple hundred applicants, sometimes 50 applicants, it's pretty, what you've accomplished is pretty amazing. And I'm sure it's going to end with a Division I title, head coach title, one of these days.
The challenge there too is how hard it is, how hard they work also. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The efforts and the energies that you have to put in, the time away from the family. And when you first start out in this game coaching, and I'm sure this, Jim, is, you don't necessarily make a whole lot of money, when you're first getting started in the game. And, it takes a lot of passion, and it takes a lot of, patience too, to kind of stick around and wait for your opportunities and create your opportunities as well. But, they think, that these coaches are living glamorous lives, and they don't understand all the challenges that go behind the scenes, being able to put yourself in a position to stay in the game.
Yeah, all very true. I'll just give you my first job coaching I was a resident hall director and assistant baseball coach at St. Anselm College, and I was making more as a resident hall director than baseball coach. I think as a resident hall director, I got like $5 or $6 grand. In baseball, I got $3, and I had more money then than I do now, believe it or not, because I had
no expenses.
Yeah, nothing. I just lived in a dorm and ate for free and just gave everything to coaching. So, and then even just going from Southern Connecticut to Merrimack. I mean, Merrimack was a part-time head coaching position, so I had to make do by working other jobs, being a special ed aide, driving a van, whatever it took but I just felt like that was the opportunity for me to be a head coach at 27 years old, and then to be able to kind of get my name out there and help that program become successful. So yeah, it's not easy. It's definitely tough. I mean, even now, you're still trying to do whatever you can to support your family and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, if you have players listening and it's, I want to get into coaching, it's, as I do, it's, you got to kind of let them know that just like in any other profession, I guess you want to be successful at something, you're going to have to start somewhere on the bottom and work your way up and really kind of, really put the time and effort in and prove that you can do it.
I don't know if I told you guys this, but in like 2006, Coach Sank needed an assistant. So I just finished up with the Ducks, about to go to the Fire Academy. And he brings me into Stony Brook and goes, hey, I want you to be my assistant here. This is a long time, 15 years ago. And he explained to me, he's like, you're not going to make 5,000, but you're not going to make 10,000. So I'm like, all right, so like 7,000. And he's like, and yeah, what you're going to do is you're going to come in for morning lift at like 7 in study hall. And then, we'll do this and that. And by the time we got to the office, it might be 10 o'clock at night. I was like, oh my God, I'm 30 years old at the time and I'm going to make $7,000 a year. And I'm like, I need to start a family. So obviously I didn't take it, but I'm honored that he asked. And, but it was the work you guys put in is amazing. So, but let's go a little step further. Jim Martin goes to a game. What does he love to see out of a player? Number one thing.
Energy. What are they bringing energy-wise? And again, it's a situation, as I'm sure you guys know too. Do they know that you're there? And then sometimes they don't know you're there. And, you can find out both ways. But just the way that they carry themselves, how they play, what's their character like on the baseball field, and, kind of how that would fit into Stony Brook. But I mean, obviously we're looking for talented players, but we're looking for guys. I mean, I'll just give you an idea. Like the first day of fall practice, out in the field, it's not a goal. This is what we do. We play hard every single pitch. So no matter if you hit a ground ball back to the pitcher, fly ball, on and off the field, the way that you carry yourself, that's what I look for as far as that's the first thing. Like I said, obviously talent, but what kind of energy are they bringing to not only themselves but to their team.
I think that's great that's the first thing he mentions, right? Because what do we say, Jim, every time we go out? It's easy to identify who the talented kid is, right? But you want to see how they carry themselves, what type of engagement they have, are they involved in the game? Are they paying attention? And, on and off the field, are they doing it with some type of intensity? And it's, ironically, we also have the summer program here, the travel program. And I can't tell you how many countless times I got to tell teenage kids, listen, you don't know who's watching you. And, and when you, kind of dog it on and off the field, well, guess what? That's an easy way to get your name scratched off the list.
Yeah. And you don't know who's there watching you that knows someone else. So you just never know.
Right.
And what kind of message that will be relayed to another coach or, you're recruiting this guy, but yeah, I saw him the other day and I don't know, something's off. It didn't seem like he really wanted to be out there. So you just never know.
And Chris knows this, and I'm curious at your level, Jim. We told the team when we first got there, the first thing I said to the team, I said, you look at our entire staff here, every single one of us, we all overachieved. So we're overachievers because we played the game like our hair was on fire. I said, if that doesn't tell you what we're looking for, then you're not understanding. And Frank Cat is always big on running hard, just like yourself, out of the box. But my question is, like, I can't believe how much we got to hold their hand. Like, they'll do it for 10 games, and then they shut it down, and you got to tell them again. And it's like everything you tell them, it never sticks with these kids of today. You just always have to stay on them and on them and on them. And it's just, I think the big game has changed a lot since, you know, when we were all playing 15, 20 years ago. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think that's what makes good coaches and good programs, is just continually holding these guys accountable. You know, if you're not holding them accountable, then you're letting them do it. You know, that's a saying, you know, something like that. But but if you're not, you know, if you're letting them doing it, you know, I mean, that's on you as a coach too. So, but I think if you look around, the good programs, the good coaches, those are the ones that are holding them accountable. And sometimes you have to raise your voice to get your point across. But I mean, ultimately, we're out there teaching, and you know, that's what coaching is. And if we see something, that's why I love the fall so much, because you're in an environment where you have their full attention. You know, we may change our format a little bit this fall, but that's what I love about our inter-squads. You know, the 2 to 3 inter-squads we have, or practice, where we have them out on the field, and, you know, we can control and let them know this is what we're going to do, and this is what's going to make us successful. So, you know, you can do it and do it the way that we want to do it and be successful, or you don't, and you're not going to be successful. You're not going to play. And ultimately it's about the team. And if you're not doing it, then we're going to fail as a team. So that's a daily, like you said, you know, I think you said 10 days, 10 games. It's the same. It's, you know, sometimes it's, you know, you get frustrated and things like that, but yeah, we got to do that on a daily basis.
It's important to have that consistent messaging, right?
Right.
So we have Chris Rojas is our voice raiser. Who's yours?
Coach Sank lets me do it, so I'll say me. Maybe because he's lighting up in his 30 years, but I mean, I've heard that he used to be more of a yeller, I guess, if you want to say in a nice way. But I would say consistently here and there, it's probably me.
Right.
Now, how much of what you do today or say today can you associate with maybe your college experience and Coach Blankmeyer?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I tell everyone. I learned the game at St. John's. I mean, I learned the game of baseball and how to be played and how to prepare, and you know, it's from Coach Blankmeyer and the coaching staff there. You know, but as far as, you know, Coach Blankmeyer is different than I am. I mean, he wasn't a big yeller. I'm not saying that I'm a big yeller, but I think I'm more vocal, you know, whereas Coach kind of, you know, he let you do your thing, and if he had, you know, he'd talk to you, but by no means was he a yeller or anything like that. But I mean, as far as the way that, in my own way,
unless he was talking to an umpire, that's
yeah.
about the only time he yelled.
Yeah, he, you know, I would say that's where I learned. I mean, that's where I learned, like I said, just how to play, how to prepare, you know, just the details of the game. He was an infielder, you know, I was an infielder, all the different stuff from an infield standpoint, hitting. Yeah, I mean, I owe it all to him and Coach Hampton and the coaching staff. You know, Coach Brown came in the last 2 years, and, you know, those guys really helped me not only become a better player, person, but, you know, as a coach right now.
George, what do you got on
What do you got
on Blanky? I like Blanky's stories. What do you got on him? The type of coach he was. How would you explain?
I think Blankmeyer was a straight shooter and was as honest as they come. And I think sometimes people didn't love that because he didn't care who you were, senior versus freshman. He would tell that senior, you're not getting the job done, and this freshman is going to get an opportunity. And if he does his job, he's going to play. And I still love you, but I have a job to do, and that's win baseball games and make you better men, and this is how I do it. So I always loved that he was a really, really straight shooter. You agree with that, Jim?
Yeah, I agree. I really can't say much more. I'll just give you a story. Just my freshman year, I coming from a smaller town outside of Boston, I played a lot in high school and getting to St. John's, Kane was in front of me at third, so I got an opportunity to play a little bit of first. I was swinging the bat, but I still wasn't playing much. And I remember that doubleheader we played against Monmouth, and it was like 30 degrees out, and he pinch hit me in like the ninth inning, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. It was freezing out, and I got jammed. And he used to always say, my door's always open. If you got something, come and see me, talk to me. And after that game, I went right into his office and said, basically, I need an opportunity. Give me an opportunity. And, credit I get back on it. He gave me an opportunity against Villanova, and I made the most of it and really never came out of the lineup again. And even my senior year, he played my junior year, I played every single game, started every game. I think it was 60 games. And then my senior year, he played a freshman a couple games, and we were struggling early on. And I remember going right into his hotel room and saying, what's going on? Keep me in the lineup. And he did, but that's the kind of guy he was. If you had something to say and you believed in it, he was going to give you a chance. And if you got it done, then he was going to stay with it. And if not, then he wasn't going to keep playing you. But he was a man of his word. He was always a man of his word. And that's something that, I always take with me too, is just the way that he treated me personally and just the guys in the program.
I find something interesting that I've talked to him about. I want to hear your take on it. So he talked to me pretty recent. Within the last few years we talked, and he said he was kind of getting, I don't want to say tired of but he was definitely like a little disheartened by the way the college recruiting game has gone. And he said, I don't get to recruit kids anymore. I have to recruit parents. And that was like one thing that stuck with me that he said. Like, what's your take on that? Because you've been doing this since probably 2006 now, recruiting. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I agree with that, especially nowadays we're recruiting younger and younger kids. So, recruiting the younger and younger kids is a situation where we have to get them involved because sometimes message doesn't get relayed where they should or as effective as we wanted to as coaches. So now we got to get the parents a little bit more involved. This is another thing that I take with my coaching. And he used to say this too all the time. And it wasn't that he was standoffish with parents when you got there, but he was coaching you. He wasn't coaching mom and dad. So the stories that I mentioned about me going in there, and I remember, my mother and father saying, if this is important to you, then you're going to go and talk to coach. And it was important to me. So it wasn't a situation where, my mom or dad sent an email because he'd talk to us about anything other than your baseball experience, because that was our experience. Academic, anything to do with, say financial aid, scholarship stuff, he would always involve parents. But to get back to what you're saying, yeah, I mean, that's fair. You got to get the parents more involved. And I think a big thing of it is because of just the age that we're recruiting younger and younger.
I think it's awesome that you mentioned something for the audience, and that was that you went in to his office as a freshman and you had a conversation like an adult instead of hearing from mom and dad. And you two guys, over at Tech, like I want the audience to hear and understand, like these coaches, they want to hear from the players. And that's, that goes right down to the high school level where I want to have conversations with these kids because there are life lessons that come out of those conversations. And I don't want to talk to mom and dad about it, but I would love to talk to the players about it.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. I think the biggest takeaway also is that parents, unfortunately, don't understand the value of maybe, having their kids independently go in and speak up for themselves or, taking accountability, right, of that relationship that they have with their coaches, because there is so much more to it than just on the field stuff, right? There's a lot of that can be learned or, a lot of things you can attribute to those types of conversations. And, and as a player, you also have to know that, listen, the door is open. And I'm sure, Jim, you can probably attest to this. You know what? The door is open for us to speak. But when you walk through that door, you also have to be prepared to hear something you may not like, right? And, and that, knowing that you may be provided with something that you necessarily weren't prepared for because, you thought you were, deserving of something and you're not getting it. But that information in itself winds up leading to you being able to handle challenges a little bit, or more, or you're better equipped to handle challenges down the line.
Yeah, the conversation's never easy. Even if they come in now, you're as a coach, but you try to be as honest as you can. And as a freshman going into Coach Blangmeier's office, or as a senior going into this hotel room, I mean, it was never easy, or sometimes he'd say things that I didn't like or agree with, but I always respected him for listening to me and then basically giving me that opportunity. When I was at URI, the year before, they won 13 games, and they really wanted to be great. They had a great group of guys, and we had a senior that he wanted to play the first weekend every game, and he did. And he came into the office, and he broke down crying because it was that important to him. But we told him that, listen, yeah, you're going to play, but we have so many guys that are very similar that this is how you're going to separate yourself. This is what you have to do. And, to his credit, he listened, and, it was a great experience. We had a great year. And, but yeah, it's not, like I said, sometimes it comes to tears, but it's only in the best interest of them and the team.
Right. So Jim, we spoke to Mike Gaffney recently from Post, and we were telling him stories how, this is I guess now we're going into our third year, even though we've only played one. But it's amazing how the kids come in sometimes wearing gym shorts or sweatpants that are cut off. Their hair's not even done. Like they made no effort or no care in the world that they were going to a recruiting visit. Do you have any instances like that where you were just shocked at what a kid showed up in?
Yeah, I mean, the one, like ripped jeans, just kind of, just try to wear something a little bit more presentable. But I did hear that podcast with you guys and Mike. It was kind of funny. I think he said something like the girlfriend came to the visit. And, yeah, I heard that. And even like with offers, he wouldn't even tell his staff, and then he'd either, bump it a certain percentage or lower it a certain percentage. So I've definitely been in that situation too, where, even if you talk it out with your staff, and then, the recruit, oh, I really liked him. That's why I gave another, 10 to 15% or something like that. So yeah, I heard that from Mike. That was fun. That was good.
Yeah, it's just shocking, and I'm sure some kids come in, like you said, they come in and they just really wow you too, so. But you guys are upgrading your field, right? Even more so?
Yeah, I mean, that's been the plan. The money's kind of been allocated. It's been unallocated. But yeah, that's the plan. There's been talk of, different things on campus. So we're just waiting. I don't know how this will all play itself out now with the pandemic going on, and how that will change. And we have a new president that's coming in from Texas, which we think will be advantageous for us, coming from an athletic school like that. And yeah, we'll see.
That's great. Now, how about Binghamton? That's got to put a little fear in you, right? Jeez, what a break.
Yeah, to say
how'd
that,
you miss that guy?
Yeah, to say that, you wouldn't want it. I'd be lying. But it'll be interesting to see how, how it all, I'm sure it's be beautiful and everything like that. So,
to our audience, right, where they get $60 million, right?
Just for baseball. Just for baseball.
Just anonymous donation, which I think they know where it came from.
I think so. I don't know, but yeah, I think so.
Some random guy just goes, I want to donate. The story I got is they were basically like, oh yeah, that's great. You just got to contact here. And it was like 60 million in the building, this beautiful stadium. I mean, could you imagine? Oh.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, we just like to get some bathrooms down at our field. So
yeah, us too.
Yeah.
Take what you can get, right?
Yeah.
Now, Jim, I think one of the things we wanted to get into because we have discussions sometimes, especially how you see how crazy like the travel landscape is, kids bounce around. And then obviously you have all these showcases and not all of them are cut from the same cloth, right? I think, a lot of the youth on amateur space is motivated by money. But obviously you as a recruiter, you have to make sure that you don't leave any stone unturned. But, what is your take on where kids should focus, or, if they have minimal means, where should they emphasize their focus so that they can allow themselves the opportunity to be noticed?
Yeah, if they have minimal funds. I mean, I always recommend the camps at the schools. If you choose 4 or 5 schools that you'd like to go to, I mean, those are usually relatively well priced, and you get the chance to be on their field. I mean, we try to do a great job of really getting to know each kid, whether it be 50 or 60 kids, just to get to know them and give them a great experience. And the time and effort that we put into planning it and going over it, and and a lot of times we'll have, say, 10 to 15 guys that we've personally invited that to be there. And there's other times where guys show up and you're like, wow, this guy's really good, and you get a chance to interact with them and be with them, and they get a chance to play in your field and see your campus and see the area. We have guys, you get a chance to possibly meet some guys from the team, if depending on which school you go to, and get a chance to meet them, and even some older guys that maybe graduated that come back, if you have a couple guys. And that's what I always say. I always say, talk to those guys during this camp, because we've been telling you how great Stony Brook is, but these guys are going through it. They're the ones that have experienced it or are experiencing it, and use them as resources. So I always like the idea of the camp itself for the school. And I think Prep Baseball Report's doing a good job too, as far as just kind of the access that they give, the coverage that they've been doing. They've been on Long Island a little bit more recently, but they've done a good job as far as the cost of their, and then you get like a profile on.
Right.
On
it looks like they do try to push it and get the exposure out for their kids, especially on the social media platform, which we know is great because you get an opportunity, a glimpse to look at a video of somebody to, figure out if that's somebody that you should put on your watch list or not. And I think it's, I love that you mentioned the whole team camp thing, because, it's, to me, it's invaluable, right? Because as a coach, one, if you're coming there, that means you have interest in us already. There's probably some level of interest that you're already, that brings you to our campus. All right. And I think we all as coaches value that in our players, right? Because at the end of the day, we want guys that want to play for you. Those are the guys you want. We want the guy that wants to play for our program, and then the other thing, I mean, and this is not to disparage any other the showcases or put anybody on the spot, but I mean, let's be honest, sometimes some of these events you go to, and most of the coaches are not really focused anyway, because they've just been invited there. They've been paid to be there. Right. And that's not saying that there's guys that aren't doing their due diligence and that aren't focused. But I mean, I think when you have these massive events, it'd be hard pressed to say that 30 guys are all locked in on all the kids out there, But when they're on your campus, you're really invested. You're really, really zoning in, for multiple reasons, So to me, that, and I'm happy that, that's, I guess that's the perception that you carry as well, that, and for our guys and our kids in our program and what I mean by program, our travel program, and any other kids that are listening, I think this is something you guys need to take mental note of.
Yeah, I agree. And, even like you said, the team camps, it's even more cost effective, because now, that number is even going lower and lower, because you just divide it amongst a team of, say, 12 to 15. Mm-hmm. So, and you're playing games on the field, and we do in the fall. We're going to try to have 1 or 2 in the summer, but you're right there again on the field playing right in front of the coaches. I mean, our whole coaching staff is right there watching, so you get a chance to see how they play, and they're on your field, and they're right there in front of you. So yeah, those are great avenues for if you're playing travel ball, and then like you said, the camp. I've always thought the school camp is always a great way to go.
So Jim, how many guys do you have coming in on the 2020 class? How many bodies coming in?
Yeah, we have 11 coming in. So we have 11 coming in the fall. And then we had 11 this year. So we kind of turned the roster over. We only have two juniors one junior that could come back from an injury, but two active juniors right now, and we only had 6 seniors, and then two seniors aren't coming back. As of right now, 4 are coming back. So, the roster really got turned over. I mean, we would have a lot of freshmen on the field at one time during the spring, which is fine. And then, like I said, we'll have 11 more coming in the fall.
Jim, we know one of those guys coming in. We won't mention his name out of respect for him and obviously the Stony Brook program, but let's just say he's about a 6'5" right-handed pitcher from Virginia.
That's a great point. Just to follow up, now he came to our camp, and he was on our campus.
We know very well.
Yeah, yeah, and our other assistant got a chance to see him at another camp, and then he came and was great. So that's just another. Yeah, yeah, that's another story. I mean, if you go up and down our roster, just even recently, the last 2 years, I would say out of the 22 guys, I think it's like over 50% that came to one of our camps.
And that's why I wanted that number, because I actually want to do with a couple local guys in a couple of weeks, talk about, like, go through the recruits, no names, just say, all right, how'd you get this guy? And it gets the parents a little bit, you say over 50%. So if I want to go to Stony Brook, I'm going to your camp. Like, that's the answer is right there, how to get in front of you guys,
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, and like I said, just the interaction, and I feel like you'll get to see what we're all about. We get to see what you're all about. I mean, you get, like I said, it's 50 to 60 kids for our guys, for our camp. So you get a lot of reps. I mean, I think guys get like 6 at-bats in a game. Pitchers get, depending on what your situation is, 1 or 2 innings if you're, 2 innings if you're a pitcher only. But the pitcher onlys go through like a little mini pitching clinic on its own while the whole position thing's going on. They're in the bullpen with Coach Cav, and they're, doing all the pitching stuff that they do, and exercising and warm-ups and throwing program and talking and what they do on a daily basis. So it's really advantageous.
How many guys do you think of the 11 that you just saw like a flat-out showcase?
Out of the 11?
Not a non-Stony Brook showcase.
Yeah. Just one of those meat market, $400, come down and.
Off the top of my head, I mean, we'll say 1 or 2.
Right. It's interesting, right? I mean.
Yeah.
Naturally, everybody wants to go to those things, but. And do you have any players in that recruiting class that you got while seeing another player?
Not in this class, but starting shortstop this year, Stan Luthner. That was the case. So we were down in Georgia for it was the 16U, and he was playing shortstop. I was there to watch a pitcher, and the shortstop, he was like taking ground balls in the deep hole in between innings. And I was like, I kind of like this kid's athleticism, just taking ground balls in between innings. And then he made a play ranging up the middle, spun and threw. I was like, and then he hit a triple, got another hit. He was all fired up. Like, they took the lead. So I contacted a guy that I know, Jamie Quinn, who's now at Fairleigh Division III. He's the head coach at the Division III Fairleigh Dickinson.
Yep. And
I said, geez, tell me about Stan Luthner. I mean, what an athlete. And he went on to tell me that, he's looking to reclass and he's young for his age. And I said, geez, I really like him. And then I had Tyler Kavanaugh go and see him. We had a flight that night, and Tyler saw him hit a triple, and, he came on a visit, and technically he was in 19. He was going to reclass, but he was in 19. So I talked to him, and, he came on campus, and needless to say, he didn't reclassify. He ended up at Stony Brook as a young freshman, and he was our shortstop this year, and had 15 games. He was phenomenal for us.
That's awesome.
What's even more awesome about that story, the best part about it is what drew his initial attention. What drew Coach Martin's initial attention was the in-between inning ground balls, right?
Yep.
You know, just another case of you never know when somebody's paying attention to you and why it's so important, you know, just to be involved and be that ball player, you know, instead of just going through the motions, right? What if he would have not did that? What if he would have just, you know, took a nonchalant ground ball? You probably would have just kept, you know, moving around the field to see who the next kid was, right? I mean,
it's funny too, because it wasn't at like the main complex down in Georgia. It wasn't at Lake Point. It was at some high school field at like 8:30 in the morning. And
Right.
there was like one other coach there. It was like, you know, it was like we were up on like a hill and the field was down here. So he wouldn't even have known that anyone was there watching him. And we're lucky that him and his family decided to listen to us as coaches and come to Stony Brook. We think he's going to be a pretty good player for us.
good for you guys.
So you getting a little taste of Adam Rubin, right?
What's that?
You're getting a little taste of Adam Rubin now.
Yeah, Adam's into it. He's done a great job. I mean, you guys know. I mean, he's totally into it, and obviously his baseball background. But I mean, he's an intense guy that you know, wants to get that story out there, and he's been an awesome addition to our athletic department. He's been awesome. Almost like, you know, he's looking for things that we don't even really necessarily have for him at times. He's just looking to pump out the content. Yep. And it's almost like, you know, it's like he is a beat reporter, almost like for the athletics. And he's awesome.
Yeah.
Did they break your chops about the accent?
Yeah, I get it. You know, I get it all the time, and it's funny. I don't know if you know this, Brian, but my first meeting with my academic advisor at St. John's, I was an education major. And for some reason, and I didn't even really know where Long Island was, you know, because I really didn't leave Norwood, Mass, where I lived. So she's like, "Are you from Long Island?" I was like, "No, I'm not from Long Island." So that's an inside joke with me and Coach Sank, because he busts my chops a lot about being a Boston guy and stuff. I was like, I have a Long Island accent. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Let's talk Red Sox baseball.
Jimmy Gell's the big hockey guy. Hockey high school player here.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what happened?
All right, I'm out.
Yeah, so the story goes. So we talked about recruiting being as early as it is now. Well, it was about as late as it could be when I was in high school, just my experience. I didn't make a decision until April of my senior year. During that time, my dad was a hockey player. He was our varsity high school hockey coach at Norwood High, and he played at Boston College. And I had an opportunity to play Division III baseball and hockey at UMass Dartmouth, and I was really leaning towards that way. And then my grandfather had a stroke, and he was in the hospital. I lived with my grandfather since I was in 4th grade, and he said, "You got to go to that school in New York." And I was like, "St. John's?" He's like, "Yeah." And then like a week later, I told my parents, and my parents were thrilled for me to go and take that opportunity at St. John's, because they thought that was the best fit for me. But again, to what we talked about earlier, they helped me through that process, but they didn't make that decision. They let me make the decision. And you know, if I needed them or we needed to talk, we would talk about it. But by no means did they ever push me. But yeah, I was a hockey player. I played hockey my whole life. So I had an opportunity to play Division III hockey and baseball right out of high school.
Well, Division III hockey is like legitimate hockey too. Yeah,
UMass Dartmouth at the time. I'm not sure how they are now, but Coach Raleigh, he really recruited me really hard. And like I said, I was about to make that decision, and my grandfather, said something to me, and it stuck. And thankfully, I made that decision, because I wouldn't be where I am without St. John's.
Awesome. Your dad must have been some hockey player then, huh?
Yeah, he was a good player. Like I said, he played at BC in the mid-'70s, and even my mother's family were big hockey players. All my mom's brothers were hockey players, and like I said, my dad was the assistant varsity coach for 15 years, and then the head coach, his best friend, resigned 2 nights before tryouts, and he had no intention of being the head coach, and he just stepped into that role, and he stayed the head coach for a few years, and it was a pretty cool experience. We had we had a great team and a great year that year. So, but yeah, I was really close to playing college hockey, and UMass Dartmouth was a really good program at the time.
Now, does being a lefty in hockey help? Is that like a big deal or what?
No, I actually play hockey righty, but I hit lefty. I don't know, golf righty, but I hit lefty. So,
man, you got to miss it though. I mean, hockey's so much better than baseball.
This guy.
Yeah, it's
somebody put a tin can on this guy's head.
I met my wife after college, and whenever we go back to Norwood and home, my mom works at a local restaurant. She's been there for over 20 years as a waitress, and everyone's like, "Oh, you know, you're still skating, you're still playing." I don't even know if my skates are still at my house where I grew up. I just got so involved in baseball. I just kind of, I wouldn't say lost the passion for it, but just I never got back into it.
Jimmy Gels, get him back on the ice.
I don't play enough either, so. But obviously, Bruins and Red Sox fan.
Yeah, I was a Bruins fan growing up. I loved Cam Neely, Andy Moog. You know, playing street hockey. Yeah, playing street hockey. I always wanted to be Andy Moog and goalie with his white pads. You know, Cam Neely. The All-Star game at what is now, you know, the TD Garden was the Fleet Center. You know, Ray Bork scored the winning goal. I mean, that was just like a cool experience for me growing up. And yeah, I was a huge Red Sox fan. My junior year is when Aaron Boone hit the home run, and then my senior year they won it. So that was that was cool. Yeah, all my roommates, they were nice about it. There was a bunch of Yankee fans, so they were nice about it.
So what was that?
It was the fall of 04 when the Red Sox won it.
Yeah, so I guess I was in Pawtucket in was it 03? Yeah, in 03. I was with a lot of those guys like Euclid and that went on. And I remember I was in Yankee Stadium. Chris, I don't know if you're going to like this, but Catalanato had, because he was in the big leagues, he got tickets. So we went to the game, and that's when they're making this big comeback. And I'm thinking to myself, a big Yankee fan, I started rooting for the Red Sox.
Oh, my God. I just threw up in my mouth.
I sat there, though, and I'm like, what am I doing? This guy, Bill Hasselman, just took care of me a couple of weeks ago. Like, this guy was really nice to me. Like, what am I supposed to do? Root for the Yankees who don't, you know.
I can't ever look at you the same now after hearing this.
I would never do that to the Rangers Islanders. I'll never, ever root against the Rangers. Ever. But yeah, that's the truth. I'm sorry, Chris. It wasn't like
I'm disappointed. You're like the guy I would go to talk about the Yankees. Now I can't even do that anymore. I feel cheated.
I was torn, okay? Put it down. So, but hey, Chris, do you know that on Dumb and Dumber, Seabass? That's what I said.
Yeah,
you know Seabass and Dumb and Dumber?
Kick his ass, Seabass?
Yeah. And he's like, you know, it's on Seabass and the Fellas. That's Cam Neely. He's a legendary Boston Bruins winger.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so what a great role he played there. So, but no, that's really cool. What a great area. I mean, I love that area, that Boston area. If my kids ever go to college, that's where I want them to go. And you know, you're the idiot that came down here.
Yeah, exactly. I remember people were asking my mother at orientation, there's so many good schools up in the Boston area. Yeah. You know, why'd you come down here?
But hey, it's a change, right? I mean,
yeah. Yeah, 9/11 was my first fall. I was in school for a week.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah, so I remember wanting to just go. I didn't have a cell phones were not prevalent at the time. I didn't have a cell phone. I had my dorm phone. My mom, I got back to my dorm. I'll never forget it. I had theology that morning, got breakfast in Montchorus Dining Hall. I had a voicemail from my mom. You okay? Everything? And I called her back. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. What's up? She's like, put on the TV. I had this little 19-inch Insignia TV in my dorm room. And I put it on, and yeah, that was my first. And I remember saying to myself, I'll go home. I'll work in Norwood. I don't want to go because baseball hadn't even started yet. So I'm like, I don't want to go back to St. John's. I'm thinking that in my head. And thankfully baseball got going, and it was all good from there. But yeah, that was a crazy first week of school.
That was strange because you don't realize how we were so close to that. You could see it from where we lived.
Yeah, the top of the hill there, by the Chinese building, you can see all the smoke.
Doris, you almost made it through, like, without technical difficulty.
Yeah, we're having some technical difficulties, but the audio's good.
The audio, it was okay. It was okay.
No, the audio's good now. We've lost video completely.
All right. Well, listen, before we let Jim go, do you want to like at least talk to him, like say something, give a good goodbye to him? I mean, before we close out, do you want to say something?
Let's. I actually want to hear his thoughts on Coach Blankmeyer's exit.
Oh yeah.
I look at Coach Blankmeyer, to me, he's like, I've had two coaches in my life that I really looked up to, and looked at as even father figures because of my situation. And that man meant a lot to me. And I was so shocked at how he exited the program. And maybe you have more information than we do, being that you're kind of in the know and, contact with these guys on a regular basis. Like, where did that come from and what happened?
I think it was the right time, right opportunity for him. I remember he used to, over the last 2 or 3 years, just kind of mentioned that he was interested in something, where he would just, kind of throw BP, hit a fungo, and not worry about all the other stuff that he couldn't, didn't really want to deal with whatever, being a Division I college baseball coach. And just, pro ball, he'd mentioned pro ball or, something like that, being a manager. So from what I understand, he said, he had an opportunity, the right time, right place. And I guess this is something that he wanted to do, but, he would say it, but, he was always the St. John's head coach and, my coach, your coach, that's what we thought. But just the timing.
He ran a pro program. I never realized until I played, but in college, I just thought that was the norm. And then, you hear from other guys like wasn't the norm, but when I got to pro ball, like that's the way he ran his program, like a pro guy.
Yeah, he let you do your thing, and even during games, that was something that always stuck with me too. It's, and Coach Sank has put it in simple terms, ways that I never really thought of, but Coach Blankmeyer, practice are for the coaches and the games are for the players, and that's what Coach Blankmeyer did. He, there's certain times and place where he'd talk to you about adjustments, but he let you play. He didn't yell at you. He didn't, that was. And for us, for me, practice is a time for us as the coaches to get you prepared and ready, and the game is for the players to go out there and play.
Yep, that's awesome. So, Bri, you good now? I can't see you.
I am good. I enjoyed this. It's reminiscing.
Yeah, Jim, we really appreciate it. And, we'd love to have you on down the road again. You're a very impressive guy. And I look forward to seeing you out recruiting, and we'll definitely chat a little bit more. It's good to meet all the local guys because we're just getting into it ourselves. But
yeah, this is awesome. This is a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on. When Doris reached out to me, I was like, yeah, no brainer. I got to get on. And it was good to hear from him, and good to be on here with you guys. This went by quick. This was fun. I really appreciate it. So anytime you guys want to have me on again, I'm all for it.
All right. No, we definitely will. So, yeah. All right, Chris, send them out.
All right. Well, hey, thanks again, Jim, and to all those people out there listening to the Wild Pitch podcast. Until next time.